She was just a broken slave with 2 children, until a human said, "Come with me." The stars burned brighter than ever. From the edge of the galaxy, a massive fleet approached. 10 Peace Force battleships, dozens of cruisers, hundreds of soldiers. Their goal was simple: erase Haven 7 and take back the Zyran woman, dead or alive. They called her the virus. They called her a threat. But she was a mother. Inside Haven 7's command chamber, Mason stared at the screen, jaw tight. "They're sending everything this time," he said. Vila stood beside him, calm but pale. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. From the truth she now carried inside. "The colony can't survive this," she said softly. Aya entered behind them. "There is one way." They turned. Aya pointed to the ancient heart of the ruins. The core Vila had awakened. "It is more than a power source. It's a gate, a key to something older. You can merge with it, become one with the system." Mason stepped forward, alarmed. "What happens if she does that?" Aya looked away. "Her body will not survive, but her mind, her soul, might." Vela didn't speak right away. She looked at Mason, then at Rai, then at Xena. She knelt and kissed each child's forehead. Then she whispered to Mason, "I came into your life as nothing. You gave me everything." Tears welled in his eyes. "We can run again. We always find a way." Vila shook her head. "Not this time. I am not a number, not a tool. I am the light they tried to bury." She leaned into his arms one last time. "Raise them well. Tell them who I was. Tell them I chose to stay." The ships entered Haven 7's orbit. Cannons powered up. Troops readied their drop-dash pods. But before they could fire, the sky turned white. Not from weapons. From her. Vela stood at the top of the ancient temple, glowing like a sun. The core behind her pulsed louder and louder. Her feet rose off the ground. The earth cracked open as ancient systems came to life. She spoke, her voice heard in every mind. "I am Vila of Zyran blood. You tried to break me. You failed. I give my light, so they may live in peace." Then she pressed her hands to the core and disappeared. Above, the sky shattered. A blast of energy brighter than any star surged outward, frying every Peace Force ship. Systems failed. Engines died. Soldiers screamed as their weapons melted in their hands. Then silence. The fleet was gone, not destroyed, removed, pulled into deep space, sent far beyond where they could hurt anyone again. The sky turned calm. The war was over. 3 days later, Haven 7 planted a new tree in the center of the colony. Under it sat a stone. On it, simple words. She was never just a slave. She was light. She was mother. She was Vila. Rai and Xena grew up in peace. Mason stayed on Haven 7, telling her story to anyone who would listen, how she gave up her life, not for revenge, but for love. And every night, the children looked up at one special star, the one that pulsed softly, the one that never faded, the one they called Mother's Light. The sky exploded. Peace Force warships fired everything: plasma cannons, energy drills, pulse grenades. The shield dome over Haven 7 held, but cracks began to show. Every blast sent tremors through the ground. Dust fell from the colonies. Walls. Fear returned to people's eyes. Inside the command room, Mason wiped sweat from his forehead. His voice echoed through the colony's radio. "Hold your posts. Watch the South Ridge. They're trying to breach the generators." Soldiers and civilians alike took up arms. Miners, traders, even teens. Haven 7 wasn't a fortress, but it was home. They would not give it up. Vela stood in the temple chamber, her hands pressed against the glowing wall. She could feel the shield weakening. Her power kept it alive, but it was draining her fast. Her vision blurred. Her legs shook, but she held on. Then, a scream through the comms. "They're inside. They're, Ache. Vila's eyes snapped open. She turned and ran at the colony gates. Peace Force troops poured through a hole in the wall. They fired at everything that moved. Civilians scattered. Mason charged straight into the fight. He shot one soldier, tackled another, used rubble for cover. But there were too many. He turned and saw a soldier aiming for a group of children. He ran in front of them, taking the blast to the side. He collapsed, groaning, blood soaking his shirt. Vila reached him seconds later. "Mason!" she cried. Falling to her knees, he smiled weakly. "I'm all right. Just a little on fire." She pressed her glowing hands to his wound. A small pulse of energy flowed into his skin, slowing the bleeding. "You can't die," she whispered. "Not now." Mason held her hand. "Then win this. End it." Vela stood. She turned toward the invaders, her arms glowing brighter than ever before. Symbols swirled in the air around her. Her hair lifted in the wind. The very ground answered her. Soldiers froze in fear. One whispered, "It's her." The living code. Vila raised both hands to the sky. A massive light burst from her chest. A wave of energy so powerful it threw the Peace Force back like paper in a storm. Ships above sparked and crashed to the ground. The remaining soldiers dropped their weapons and ran. Silence returned. The air smelled of fire and victory. Mason slowly stood, leaning on a metal rod. He looked at her, bathed in light, eyes full of tears. You saved all of us," he said. Vila turned to him. "I thought my fire would destroy things, but maybe it was always meant to protect." She collapsed into his arms. Hours later, Haven 7 was quiet. The wounded were being healed. The walls were being rebuilt. Children laughed again. And in the center of it all, Vila sat with Xena and Rai in her lap. They were drawing pictures in the dirt, one of Mason, one of Vela, and one of their small ship. Mason sat beside her, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. "Still want to run?" he asked. Vila shook her head. "No, I want to plant roots." Mason smiled. "Then let's build something that lasts." But in deep space, far from Haven 7, a silent figure watched the destruction report on a black screen. Behind him stood other Peace Force commanders. She awakened a corps, fought back a fleet. One woman. Another commander asked, "What now?" The silent figure turned. "Now we send everything." Peace Force ships cut through the black sky like blades. There were 5 of them, massive, cold, armed, on the ground. The people of Haven 7 stood in silence as the sky lit up with the red glow of approaching engines. The colony had always hidden from the galaxy. But now it was found, and they knew why. Vila. Inside the underground chamber, Vila sat with Aya, her hands resting on the glowing floor. Silver lines ran up her arms, pulsing with soft light. "I don't know if I can control it," she whispered. "You don't need full control," Aya said. "You just need to believe you're more than what they made you." Vila looked down. "I was sold, branded, owned." "You were never owned," Aya replied. "You were stolen. But you are not lost." Behind them, Mason walked in. "They'll land within the hour," he said. "Haven 7 has old guns, a shield dome, and a few ex-mercs. But we're outmatched." Aya nodded. "Then we don't fight with weapons alone." She turned to Vila. "You are the weapon now?" Mason took Vila to the surface. They stood on the hill, watching the ships descend like giants from the stars. Vila clutched his arm. "They'll try to take me. I won't let them." Mason looked into her eyes. "And if they can't take you, they'll try to kill you. I'm not afraid," she said. "Not anymore." Mason reached into his jacket and pulled out a small silver band. "What's this?" she asked. "A promise," he said, sliding it onto her finger. "No matter what happens, we stay together." Vila's hands shook. She pressed her forehead to his. "Thank you for seeing me." Peace Force soldiers landed outside the colony walls. Dozens. Tanks rolled across the rocks. Drones filled the air. A tall officer in white armor stepped forward. Her voice echoed from a speaker. You hold a dangerous being. Hand her over now. You have 10 minutes. Inside the colony, people looked to Mason and Vila. Some were afraid. Some wanted to surrender. But then Mason stepped up on a crate and shouted, "Listen. You know who she is now. You saw what she did. Not to harm, to save. They want to take her, use her, maybe even kill her. But she's not a threat. She's hope." He pointed to Vila. "She's not their slave. She's not their tool. She's a mother. She's one of us." People began to nod. One old miner raised a wrench. "Let's make them bleed first." Another grabbed a rusted blaster. For Haven 7. Minutes later, as Peace Force soldiers moved closer, Vila stepped forward. Alone. No armor. No weapons. Just her and the glowing light under her skin. The officer raised her blaster. "On your knees." Vela raised her hand slowly, then pressed her palm to the dirt. The ground roared. The entire colony lit up. Buried engines and hidden tech rose from below. A dome of glowing energy surrounded Haven 7, protecting it, the peace. Force fired. The blasts hit the shield and bounced away. Mason watched in awe. She was doing it. She was protecting everyone. Vila's voice rang out across the field. "You cannot own me again. I am not your weapon. I am not your property. I am Zirin." And in that moment, everyone believed her. The bounty hunter's mask gleamed in the red warning lights. He moved like a shadow. Slow, sure, unshaken. Behind him, smoke rose from the blown security gate. Mason stood in his path, blood still crusted on his shoulder, holding his blaster. "Steady," I said. Mason growled. "You're not taking her." The bounty hunter didn't answer. He fired. Mason ducked, rolled, and shot back. The blast hit the bounty hunter's chest, but his armor absorbed it. Sparks flew. Mason cursed. Under his breath, the bounty hunter moved fast now. Too fast. He slammed into Mason, knocking him to the ground. Boot to chest. Blaster to head. Wrong choice, the bounty hunter said coldly. Inside the shelter, Vila clutched her children close. They heard the blast, the screams, the sound of fighting. Xena whimpered. "Is Mason gonna die?" Vila shook her head. "No, I won't let him." She stood, trembling, but something inside her had changed. She wasn't just scared now, she was angry. The bounty hunter turned his head slightly. Something behind him had changed. The air grew warmer. Then he heard it, a hum. Deep and old. He spun just in time to see Vela step from the smoke, her arms glowing bright silver, her eyes filled with light. The symbols on her skin burned like fire. "Let him go," she said. The bounty hunter raised his blaster. Vela lifted her hand. The ground shook. All around them, the old stone of Haven 7 cracked open. Light poured from the cracks like lava, ancient tech, buried deep. Now waking up for her, the bounty hunter fired. The blast stopped mid-air. It floated like frozen glass, then shattered before it reached her. Mason stared in disbelief. From the ground, "What the hell?" Vela stepped forward. One word left her lips. "Leave." The bounty hunter flew backward like a ragdoll. His body slammed into the far wall and dropped, motionless. Everything went quiet. Vela dropped to her knees, exhausted. Her arms still glowed faintly, but the power was fading. Mason crawled over and caught her before she collapsed. "You saved me," he whispered. Vela looked up at him, weak but alive. "I didn't mean to. It just happened." Aya rushed over, eyes wide. "You activated the heart core of the planet. This place was dead. You brought it back." Mason looked around. The walls now pulsed with light. Symbols floated in the air. The colony was waking up, alive in ways no one had seen for centuries. "You're not just a key, Vila," Aya whispered. "You're a beacon." Later that night, Mason wrapped her shoulder in a blanket and sat beside her while the children slept. "You good?" he asked. Vela looked at her hands. "I thought my blood was cursed. Now I see, it was meant to protect." Mason smiled. "You protected all of us today." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm tired of running, Mason. I want to build something for Rai, for Xena, for you." Mason held her hand. "Then let's stop running, but far away." A signal blinked on a Peace Force cruiser. "Power signature detected. Level 9 activation." Xirin code confirmed. A voice said, "Mark the location. Send the fleet." Vela woke up screaming, not from fear, from memory. Mason rushed in, finding her shaking, eyes wide, sweat on her face. She sat up fast, breathing hard. The children stirred, but she waved them back to sleep with a trembling hand. Mason knelt beside her. "What did you see?" "I remember, a lab. White lights, cold walls," she said. "They were not slavers. They were scientists. They tested me." Mason's jaw tightened. "You were experimented on." Vela nodded slowly. "They called me the Seed, said I had ancient code in my blood. Something lost for thousands of years." She looked at her arm. "My skin, it opens things, machines, doors, weapons." Mason sat back, shocked. Aya's words now made more sense. Vela wasn't just rare. She was a key to something powerful. And that meant they were all in danger. Later that day, Aya gathered them in the old ruins beneath Haven 7. She placed Vela's hand on a metal wall, smooth, ancient, humming with power. "Focus," Aya whispered. "Let your memory guide your touch." Vela closed her eyes. The lines on her arms glowed. The wall lit up with strange symbols. Then, with a hiss, it slid open. Inside was a hidden chamber. Golden light filled the room. In the center stood a giant cube floating in the air. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Aya stepped back. "That is a star core. It powers entire colonies, entire worlds." Mason's eyes widened. "She just opened that like it was a kitchen drawer." Aya nodded. "The slavers sold her. The Peace Force hunts her. But the truth is, Vela can command systems no one else remembers how to use." Vela looked afraid. "I don't want this. I just want my children to be safe." "You can't run forever," Aya said softly. "And now, it's too late." Back above ground, a dusty stranger entered Haven 7's outer edge. He wore a long coat, a mask, and carried a scanner. Quiet, precise, deadly. He wasn't a slaver. He was a bounty hunter. And he had Vela's face on his holopad, glowing red. Marked, "Wanted alive, 200,000 credits." Night fell over the colony. Mason cleaned his blaster. His body still hurt from the Peace Force fight, but his heart was heavier. He sat with Aya again. "Why now? Why are they after her all of a sudden?" "Because word got out," Aya said. "You think secrets stay buried in the stars?" "No, someone saw her, someone talked." Mason looked over at Vela, brushing Xena's hair by the fire. "She's not a threat," he said. "No," Aya replied, "but she's the key to power, and power makes enemies." Suddenly, alarms rang out across Haven 7, flashing red lights. Shouting. Then, boom, a blast shook the ground. Mason jumped to his feet. "Stay with the kids," he shouted to Vela. He ran outside. Blaster ready. Smoke filled the air. And through it walked the masked bounty hunter, calm, slow, unafraid. He pointed at Mason. "Step aside. The woman comes with me." Mason raised his blaster. "Over my dead body." The bounty hunter tilted his head. "That's the plan." The rust bucket flew through deep space, far beyond the trade routes and beacon signals. They had no map now, no set course. Just coordinates whispered in old bars and outlaw stations. Mason called it the drift. Vela sat beside him in the co-pilot's seat. Her children were asleep in the back room, wrapped in warm blankets and peace. She looked out the window and whispered, Stars here. Different. Mason nodded. Out here, no one cares who you were, or what was painted on your back. She touched her own shoulder, where the number 47 had once been. It was almost gone now, faded under his care. But the pain still lived in her memory. 3 days later, a small moon appeared in the dark. No lights. No cities, just rocks, caves, and old ruins. Mason tapped the screen. We're here. Outlaw Colony, Haven 7. Not on any Peace Force maps. As they landed, the ground shook. Wind howled. But no patrols came. No cameras watched. This was a free place. Or so it claimed to be. At the edge of the colony stood metal buildings made from broken ships. Smoke rose from chimneys. Creatures of all kinds walked the dirt roads. Tall, short, some with wings, others with tails. No one looked twice at anyone. It was a strange kind of peace. Mason held Vila's hand as they walked. Rai and Xena clung to their mother. Then someone stepped in front of them, tall with dark skin and glowing blue eyes. Not human. Not alien either. Something older. She wore robes marked with ancient patterns. You bring the Zyran mother, the woman said. Paused. You know her? The woman looked at Vila closely. Her kind is rare, thought gone. But I know that light in her veins. She is more than what the slavers saw. Vela whispered. Who are you? I am Ea, keeper of lost things. Come, we must speak. Inside a round stone room, Ea sat by a fire. The walls were covered in carvings, stories, symbols, old maps. Of dying stars. She offered Mason and Vila tea. The kids slept in a warm corner. You are safe here, Ea said. But you must understand who you are hiding. Vila blinked. I don't understand. Ea pointed to the lines on Vila's arms. They glowed faintly in the firelight. These are not just skin patterns. They are bio-keys. Zyrines once held power over star engines, gate drives, energy itself. You are not weak. You are ancient tech made flesh. Mason sat up straight. Are you saying she's a living weapon? Ea shook her head. No, she is a living answer. That's why the slavers marked her. That's why the Peace Force wants her back. Vila touched her glowing skin. But I don't remember. I only remember pain. Ea nodded slowly. Then we must help you remember. Not for war, but for freedom. That night, while Vila slept with her children, Mason sat outside by the fire with Ea. She's been through hell. Mason said, I just want her to be happy. You do more than protect her, Ea replied. You believe in her. That is stronger than any weapon. Mason looked at the stars. If she really is some key to something big, what happens when the galaxy finds out? Ea's eyes glowed brighter. Then the war will come to your door. Mason locked the controls and reached under the cockpit. He pulled out a dusty black case and popped it open. Inside was an old plasma rifle, scratched, heavy, deadly. He checked the charge. Still had 3 full bursts. Not enough for a fight, but enough to send a message. In the cargo bay below, Vila held Rai and Xena tight, hidden under metal floor panels. She whispered in her own language, soft, calming sounds, like a lullaby from a lost world. The children stayed silent. They were used to hiding. But this time, they weren't hiding from pain. They were hiding from rescue, because rescue might take them back to chains. A loud metal clang echoed through the ship. The Peace Force had docked. Boots hit the deck above. Mason took a deep breath and stood in the main hall, rifle behind his back. His ship was old, dark and cramped, perfect for ambushes. 3 armored soldiers stepped in. Black visors. Clean uniforms. No hearts. The leader scanned him with a glowing device. You're Captain Cade? Yeah. You're carrying undocumented aliens. That's illegal under Interworld Regulation 13. They're not aliens, Mason said. Firmly. They're my family, the lead soldier snorted. You bought a slave and now claim she's your wife? Typical human filth. Mason's jaw clenched. Say that again. I said. Mason moved first. The rifle came up fast and hard. The blast hit the soldier in the chest, knocking him flat. The others shouted and dove for cover. Laser fire lit up the dark hallway. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. Mason ducked, rolled, and fired again, this time at the lights. The hallway went black. The Peace Force weren't used to fighting in the dark. Mason was in the cargo bay. Xena whimpered. Vila covered her mouth gently. Then she heard footsteps. Getting closer. Too heavy for Mason. Too loud for safety. Vila looked around. She had no weapons. Just her arms. Her body, but she would not let them take her children again. Not alive. She rose quietly, left the panel open just a little so the kids could still breathe, and stood in the shadows near the crates. A Peace Force soldier entered, flashlight sweeping. Footsteps slow. Searching. Vila moved like a ghost. Quiet, careful. When he passed her, she struck. She grabbed a metal rod and smashed it across his helmet. He fell with a cry. She hit him again. And again. When it was over, she stood over the body, breathing hard, hands shaking. Then she grabbed his weapon and rushed back to her children. Back in the hallway, Mason had taken a hit. His shoulder burned. Blood ran down his arm, but he was still standing. The last Peace Force soldier turned and tried to run back to the ship. Mason let him go. A warning was sent anyway. They'd be hunted now. Mason limped down to the cargo bay. Vila rushed to him, eyes wide. You are hurt. He smiled weakly. Been worse. You saved us, again. You saved me too, he said, nodding at the stolen rifle in her hands. Then he looked at the kids. We can't stay in this system. They'll send more. Where do we go? She asked. He looked out the small window to the stars. Somewhere far. Somewhere they'll never find you. Somewhere you and the kids can live free. Vela touched his hand softly. We go together? Mason nodded. Always. The stars outside the ship looked cold and endless. Lot 47 sat on a soft seat for the first time in her life. Her children slept beside her. No metal cuffs, no cage. No pain. Just quiet. Mason piloted the ship from the front, one hand on the controls, the other rubbing his tired face. He hadn't planned this. He didn't even know what species they were. He just couldn't leave them there. He looked over his shoulder. You got names? He asked gently. Lot 47 shook her head. No name. Only number. Mason frowned. Well, I'm not calling you a number. He pointed at himself. I'm Mason. Mason. Cade. She stared at him, confused but listening. He pointed at the little boy. Him? She whispered softly. Rye. Then the girl. Xena. And you? Mason asked. She hesitated. Her lips trembled. Vela, she said. Mason smiled. All right. Vila, Rye, Xena. Welcome to my ship, the Rust Bucket. Vela didn't understand what Rust Bucket meant, but his voice made her feel safe. Later, in the small kitchen, Mason made them food. It wasn't much, just old protein packs and warm water, but the kids ate like they hadn't seen food in days. Vila watched them closely, still unsure if this was a trick. Many masters played nice in the beginning, until the collar came. Out. But Mason never reached for one. No collar. No chains. Only warm food and soft blankets. That night, after the kids fell asleep, Vila stayed up. She stood by the window, staring at the stars. Mason walked up beside her. You don't have to be afraid, he said. Vila didn't answer. He continued, you don't belong to me. I didn't buy you to use you. I bought you to save you. She looked at him slowly. Why? He shrugged. I saw the way you looked at your children. That's all it took. Vila's voice shook. In my world, love is weakness. We are taught not to feel. Mason looked her in the eyes. In mine, love is the only thing that matters. Suddenly, the ship shook. Lights flickered. Mason cursed and ran to the front controls. Vila followed him, holding the wall. What is it? Ship's being scanned. We've got a patrol ship on our tail, he said, tapping buttons. Slavers? She whispered, fear in her voice. Peace Force. Vela backed up, holding her chest. They will take us back. They say I was stolen property. Mason's eyes narrowed. Over my dead body. The Peace Force ship hailed. Them. Unregistered transport. Halt engines and prepare for inspection. Mason muted the call. Vila, take the kids to the cargo bay. Hide under the floor panels. Don't make a sound. She nodded and ran. Mason opened the channel again. This is Captain Cade of the Rust Bucket. I'm just hauling scrap to Denver Station. We detect 3 life signs not on your registry. Explain. Mason gritted his teeth. They're family. There was silence on the line. Prepare to be boarded. Mason stood, grabbed his plasma pistol, and whispered to himself, like hell I will. The auction hall smelled like rust, sweat, and sadness. Strangers filled the seats, whispering and bidding, holding credits in their hands like weapons. Overhead blinking lights showed numbers, prices, and names. But no one cared about names. Here, only numbers. And she was just another number. They painted Lot 47 on her back in red ink. The brush felt cold. Her skin, soft and pale with thin silver lines from her species, flinched under the touch. But she didn't cry. Not anymore. Crying was useless here. Lot 47 held her children close, 2 small alien kids, shaking and silent. One of them had bruises on his neck. The other stared blankly at the wall like his soul had already flown away. The guards pushed her forward. She stumbled onto the auction platform. Lights hit her face. People stared, some laughed. Some nodded. A loud voice echoed through the room. Lot 47. Female, Zyran species. Age unknown, still fertile. Comes with 2 offspring. Trained in basic domestic care. Bidding starts at 2,000 credits. The children trembled. The mother didn't move. Her eyes searched the crowd, maybe hoping for a miracle. But she saw only monsters in fine clothes, until she saw him, a human. He sat at the back, arms crossed, face calm. He looked different from the rest. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't laughing. He looked angry. His name was Mason Cade, a former soldier. Now a scrap hauler who barely made enough to keep fuel in his ship. He didn't come here to buy anyone. He came looking for spare parts. But something in her eyes hit him like a blast to the chest. The bidding started. 2,000. 2,200. 2,500. Voices shouted numbers like they were playing a game. The little boy started to cry softly. Mason stood up, loud, firm. 10,000 credits, he said. The room went silent. Even the auctioneer blinked. Sir, you said 10. I said what I said. Mason replied, 10,000 for her and the kids. Gasps filled the air. Someone in the front row scoffed that humans lost his mind. But it was too late. The auctioneer hit the buzzer. Sold to the human. Back in the back room. Lot 47 didn't know what to expect. Another cage? Another master? Instead, Mason knelt down to her children, gently, carefully. You hungry? He asked them. The girl nodded slowly. Mason looked up at the mother. I'm not here to own you. I'm here to take you away from this place. You're free now. Lot 47 didn't understand the words at first. Her language was broken. But his voice, his eyes, they were clear, soft, honest. She fell to her knees and hugged her kids tightly. For the first time in a long time, she let herself cry, not from fear, from hope.